Hi, welcome to A Fern Between Us, episode 21.
21? That's crazy. We are, Michelle and I are two of the four owners of Evoc Winery. My name is Jesse.
And I'm the Michelle part of that. Today we have a special guest, Greg Blackburn. And I could take hours and hours to tell you how amazing he is. I'm going to try to condense it. He retired from NASA's Johnson Space Center in 2015 and was the Deputy Division Chief of the EV Avionics System Division. I will have to explain what that is because, whoa, I can hardly pronounce it. With the prestigious honor of the Silver Snoopy Award, which is given by an astronaut for the outstanding performance contributing to human space flight. So what an incredible thing to have under your belt. During his time at NASA, he designed the software for the Shuttle Avionics Integration Laboratory and developed the GPS system that the ISS uses today. So, can you say badass?
I don't know, can you say that?
Well, I just
what does YouTube think?
So, welcome, Greg, and what's in your glass this evening?
Say again, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
What's in your glass? What are you drinking?
Oh, my glass. Well, it's actually a can. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
It's a B-52 beer from a person you probably know, Jessica Daniel, who's your cousin, that owns a brewery here in the Houston area. And this one is a smoothie tart. It's their Berliner beer with a strawberry and plum crumble.
All right.
It's a very tasty beer. So I'm enjoying that. And I'm sorry it's not a wine.
No.
That's quite all right.
We're in all of the above kind of, we accept drinkers of all kinds.
Absolutely, and it's such an awesome thing that your daughter Jessica has a brewery. She was born on the same day as Jesse, and so it's kind of a cool thing to have cousins both open beer establishments born on the same day with essentially the same name. I mean,
right? Jesse, Jessica, we're 1 decade
and
apart.
That was by chance. I did not do that on purpose.
Right?
That's what really adds to the story too. That's pretty cool.
I think it's so sweet.
So we have
I feel very connected to you guys.
Right, we have some pretty good questions for you that we put out to the social media community. And so let's jump into those because we are super eager to hear all about space and the cool stuff happening.
Something fun for once, all this bad news for so long. We're so excited to have something fun going on here
Right.
that we can just enjoy for pure enjoyment's sake.
Well, that's kind of why I joined NASA years ago, was just to have some fun, a very positive thing. I didn't want to build a better bomb, so I went to go work for NASA.
I love that you wanted to be at NASA for fun, because that's not really what I think of, like, that's hard. All right, so the first question, you were a key contributor to making the ISS successful. What was one of the biggest challenges you faced?
So one of the biggest challenges that came to mind immediately when you posed that question is just making schedule. One of the biggest projects I worked on was working with a group of people to put GPS on space station, the same GPS, where we communicate with the same GPS satellites as you do with your phone. And we were building the hardware that's required to do that GPS communication. And it was very complex, and we had two major types of hardware that we were building: an antenna and a receiver. And but those devices, those things that we were building, had to be put on a shuttle mission that was scheduled in the future. So you're going through the process of a project, and you're building this hardware, and you're constantly worrying about, are we going to be able to make that upcoming shuttle mission that is going to be used to put that hardware on orbit. One of our hardware pieces was in the U.S. laboratory. You've probably heard of that. Our antennas were on a truss segment. So we were trying to make those shuttle deliveries on time, so they're not waiting on us to get the hardware to the Kennedy Space Center. And that is probably the biggest challenge and stress points that I probably had in my career. And that was right in the middle of my career.
Well, and you guys had like those big, blocky, weird computers back then. It's not the technology that we have today and the cell phones that we have today. And I mean, you guys were creating something before the computers. I mean, nowadays we think about how a computer can kind of create so many things, but you guys were telling the computers how to create stuff.
That is a very true statement. With GPS, we really were the first people to put GPS in a low Earth orbit type of environment. Because GPS is typically the guy on the Earth walking around with his GPS, right? Well, this is a GPS that's going to have to work the same way, but it's going 17,000 plus miles an hour.
Whoa.
So you're having to communicate with these satellites that are above you, about 7,500 miles up, and do all the math to do precision. And we were also doing attitude. We were giving attitude orientation of the station to the guidance system of the guidance software. And so this was all kind of pretty cutting edge, actually, from an application of GPS. And at the time, and we're talking 90s, GPS was still relatively new. So it was quite a ride to make all that happen. And there were some very, very smart people involved on the team. I was more of a system engineer / project manager type, trying to help make everything happen.
It sounds like
go ahead.
Greg, it sounds like you're deflecting the smartness onto some other people and stuff like that. But I'm not buying it.
Perspective, there are some brilliant people out there that the software that goes on in that receiver to make it work going that fast above the surface of the Earth is pretty crazy.
Well,
it was very nice working with those guys.
I think your contributions were clearly very respected as well. Let's jump into the second question. The ISS, so the International Space Station. People want to know, why are we there and what are we doing up there? And is it focused mostly on experiments, or what's the day-to-day? What are they doing up there?
So in general, the space station, the ISS, is really there to explore low Earth orbit, which a lot of people don't realize that the station is only 250 miles up. So, but you experience zero G, zero gravity. So it's a perfect location to study, hey, is there experiments associated with fabrication process, manufacturing things in space without gravity? Maybe that will turn up something. You study the human body. One thing that we've discovered for years actually now, and just the scientists are really looking at, okay, what happens to the human body when you experience long duration exposure to zero G, to no gravity. And what we're finding is, or what they're finding, is that our human bodies really aren't designed for zero G. We're designed for 1G. And so you have to counteract all the types of things that are working, damaging your body when you're in zero G. So you'll see that astronauts do tons of exercise. That's one thing we learned. So exercise and how to do countermeasures, counteract those effects, is a big research area. And actually, they need to do it just for their own health. Bone loss. They've started to discover it hurts your eyes, the function of your eyes. And it's just trying to figure all that out, because if we want to go beyond low Earth orbit to, say, the Moon and Mars, we're going to have to get good at how to make the humans survive such a trip. Because otherwise you might be a wet noodle or not even survive it on such a long trip because of just zero G. So there's a lot of experiments along the human side, but there is science looking at dark matter, looking at things like manufacturing, that kind of thing. So there's lots of different experiments of varying lengths of time to study various things that people dream up here on Earth.
So cool.
So cool.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think what the initial hope was that one of the spin-offs from the space station would be a commercial factory in space based on discoveries made on the station. That would be an example of what might come of the research that's up there.
What about like a space station version that's a hotel?
That can what? I'm sorry.
That's a hotel, like so that us ordinary people could go and stay at the space station hotel.
So a space hotel, yeah. No, that's in the realm too. I mean, that's really when you start getting into the commercial side. NASA will never do that, of course, but commercial space, that's on their radar. So there are people that would pay big money to go up and stay on their own space station hotel to experience zero gravity. That's definitely a commercial venture that's out there, that's coming.
We have to sell a lot more wine before we get to even think about that. And speaking of, the third question on our list is, do the astronauts up on the ISS ever get wine?
Absolutely not. No alcohol.
Oh, man.
Wow, why?
That's a rough tour.
But that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Probably they've drunk wine. I think, yeah, not officially, but I'm sure it's snuck up there. But that question, what that reminds me of is the early days of space station. And if you remember, the first assembly flights of space station was done by the Russians.
Vodka.
So obviously the Russians have been involved from the get-go for ISS. And early on, when the early days of space station, excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, much better. Much better. There was these rumors that the environment system was getting overrun with alcohol. They were having to process the air, had so much alcohol in it, it was hurting the environment control system.
Oh, wow.
That's just a rumor. But the source was always thought to be the Russians were bringing up a lot of vodka.
That's really interesting.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, it's a well-known fact. Russians love their vodka, of course.
Right.
Just like we love our wine and beer. But I'm 95, 99% certain alcohol has made its way to the station. Another thing that reminded me of was there have been a number of quote experiments from the beer industry. I think most recently was some barley seeds were flown up there to grow some seedlings that would then make their way back to Earth, and then they would make some beer from it.
Whoa.
So that's more of I would call that more of a gimmick, but it's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's killer. I love the idea.
Yeah.
But obviously that's way before the beer gets produced. So.
Well, hopefully when they figure out the ISS version hotel, they have booze available. Which the fourth question we have for you is SpaceX, and what could you maybe share with us that the everyday person might not be glimmering as important while they watch SpaceX get involved with NASA and the recent mission?
Well, that's a good question. It's been said, I guess, in the literature or in the media, but that was such a huge milestone for commercial space. It's very analogous to me to commercial aircraft. When that started to emerge years ago from government development of aircraft. So now we've got a case, now SpaceX, with that landing, splashdown they did just recently, has really opened the door for spacecraft being built by commercial companies. Boeing is right behind SpaceX, going to do the same kind of thing. But SpaceX is really bringing the commercial sector with the commercial interests and the commercial way of doing business to a reality. So we were seeing history being made. It didn't seem like it, since SpaceX has been doing a lot of sexy things, but when they did that splashdown, and this is the culmination of work that started in like 2006, that was just, and that might be surprising, that did start a long time ago with NASA's help.
Yeah.
A lot of NASA's help, particularly funding-wise. But NASA wanted to start up commercial space so that NASA and the government can focus more on longer-term things like going back to the moon and Mars. So, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So that was very significant. It was, to me, I was very nervous about the whole flight, given it was their first flight. Space travel is dangerous. I've learned that many times, and it was just good to see those guys back on Earth, safe and sound.
Well, and just to double back to some of the information that we shared as your bio, but that was a focus for you when you worked at NASA, was creating this laboratory where you could simulate what would happen on the shuttle. And that is such an important piece in that hadn't been done before.
Right. A lot of this was his first time, and we're still learning. We're going to make mistakes. SpaceX contract was not your traditional NASA contract. NASA gave them a lot more leeway than they would typically have, a lot less oversight, and gave them more free reins. Same with Boeing. So this is it's a hard transition for the NASA guys, to be honest, because we're used to being the knickers of everything. So, but for commercial, it's commercial. So they should be able to do what they want to do, drive the market like they want to drive it. So that will be the big thing to watch for is, okay, what commercial markets start to open up that don't need the government as its customer? And a space hotel, as you bring up, would be one of those things. So it's very exciting. It's fun to be alive right now, just from that perspective, is to see that all get started.
It's super exciting, and that brings us to our final question for you for today on space. We'll have some more questions, but and that's this idea of a mission to Mars. And Mars is exponentially further away, a much bigger task to tackle. And Jesse's out of wine, sorry, I had to indicate where to find that. There's these amazing images that NASA is releasing. Can you talk a little bit to this idea of human exploration on Mars?
That's a tough one, actually. So robotic missions are exciting, and we're going to continue that hard and heavy and learn a lot from those. Those are fairly straightforward, but those are very complex too, just to get a machine there and do all the things you want it to do. And one shout out I'll give to the JPL guys who do a lot of that work is the 7 Minutes of Terror video that's out there from the last landing of Curiosity on Mars. And it shows what has to happen right for that thing to land on Mars once it gets there.
Yeah.
So Google that, and it's pretty cool. One of the toughest things is just getting there. And with traditional propulsion systems that we have there, it takes a long time to get there. You know, it takes almost a year to get there. That means you're in zero G, theoretically. I typically think you need something that has artificial gravity, but if you had zero gravity for that long, that's going to be tough, because you want to be in good condition once you get there. And the other thing of deep space travel is radiation to the human body is just really tough. And even in low Earth orbit, once you get away from the protection of Earth's atmosphere, the human body is really affected by radiation in not a good way. So we've got to figure out how to protect humans to be able to even make that happen. So there's still some more work to be done to make a mission to Mars a reality. I personally think I'm going to be long dead before that happens.
Oh,
but
man.
It's out there in the future. And I've always felt from the day one that going back to the moon is the next logical step. If we can get good at that, we're going to learn a lot from that, learn more from that, and that will be the springboard into going to further distances like Mars. But it is extremely, extremely hard to go all the way to Mars in a human type of exploration mission. I get a little frustrated with Elon Musk when he kind of makes these pronouncements that he's going to go to Mars next week.
He said that a few times, I think.
he solved a few things that people have been looking at for a long time. So, but it's a great goal. We need to have it out there to push ourselves and push technology and push that kind of thing. So I'm glad it's on the books. It's been on NASA's books probably from day one, to be honest. We've always been looking to go to Mars. There's something intriguing about Mars. Mm-hmm. So hopefully it will happen. Hopefully I'll be wrong as how fast it will happen. But we need some major technology kinds of discoveries, like propulsion, to get there faster. We need that warp factor that Star Trek has. And that has been a technology focus for a number of years at NASA, is to try to look at different ways of getting there. And then landing is another thing that's real hard, because you're going to be going so fast, and once you get there, you got to figure out how to stop. Mm-hmm. And that's the 7 Minutes of Terror too. It shows you a little bit, gives you a sense of that, how hard that whole process is, because there's not much atmosphere in Mars to help slow yourself down. But there's a lot of smart people looking at that. I'm sure we'll figure something out.
It's super exciting.
Yeah, thanks for all the...
It's very exciting, and it really pushes the minds here on Earth on how to solve that problem. And that's one of the biggest benefits of NASA is putting forward complex problems to solve. And that spins off to everything.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Greg. I have our Karen's questions as a final moment to have you.
Karen is the name of our fern, by the way, which is not a fern, but...
our plant that sits between us, the non-fern, is Karen, and she's got questions for you. So if you can answer these without even really thinking about it, just, shoot off the hip. All right. Are you ready, Greg?
Say yeah, I'm sorry.
Are you ready?
I'm sorry.
All right. Question number 1. What's your favorite?
Question number 1.
Yeah. What's your favorite smell?
No. Flowers.
Ooh.
Nice.
When you die, what do you hope at least one person will say about you at your memorial?
Greg was a good guy.
Greg was a good guy.
He was. I'll say that.
We'll say it before you even go.
But I'll probably die before you.
All right, the next one is, what is the best advice you've ever been given?
Best advice I've ever been given. Final answer? Plan your work, work your plan. That's what Dad always used to say.
Oh,
hey, I like that.
Nice, nice. And
But a corollary of that work that I did at work was organize your work and work your organization.
ooh,
Hey, I like that.
that's good. All right, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Probably, I guess, astronaut would probably be the right answer.
That's what I wanted to be.
Yeah. And another side note, I did apply to be an astronaut and got the reject letter. So I still have that.
I didn't get that far. I just wanted to be an astronaut or be you, maybe. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I was like. I was like, Greg Blackburn's my hero. Uncle Greg's my hero.
Well, the way I feel about it is when I finally grow up, I want to be you. So, you know, we're all working at it. And the final question is, what is your favorite word or phrase to use?
Janet's going to laugh if she's listening. It's the people, stupid.
Nice.
Dude, Greg, thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Great talking to you guys.
Cheers, man.
Yeah.
Say hi to the family for me. We got a whole
For
bunch
us,
of
for
Blackburns for all of us. We got a whole bunch of Blackburns listening. I saw on the little feed there. So, hey, Blackburns, the B6 crew is in the house.
There we go. We love B6.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Sure, great seeing you guys. Great talking.
Have a good one, man.
Bye.
See ya.
All right, so I'm going to remove Greg, and I'm going to turn on the lights that you had turned off.
I didn't turn any lights off.
You turned all the
those
lights
ones.
off, and we've been sitting in the dark.
I'm in the dark here.
Yay.
What is that? Is that that's a Jack Nicholson? I'm in the dark here. So next we have some unconventional drinking to do. Unconventional for this show, not unconventional in general. Today we've been drinking wine for now, but I'm going to switch over. Michelle will probably keep her wine glass because not her favorite subject.
I don't do the hard booze very well, so.
So today I'm going to explain the difference between Brandy and Grappa, which are both made from wine.
I actually need to drink a little bit more in order to prep myself for tasting these.
Which are both made from grape wine specifically, unless it's a fruit brandy. But did you have a way that you wanted this to go, or do you want me to just launch into it?
Well, all right. Since you're going to be the teacher, what is the basic difference between a brandy and a grappa?
Okay, both are. Actually, can I start from? Let me just start from what any hard alcohol is versus.
Oh,
so
great,
you've got in the world of booze, you've got beer and wine, and those are both fermented products. To make any other higher alcohol, any spirit, they call it, right? Booze or spirit. To make a spirit, you start with a beer or a wine, and that's just a technicality on the difference, honestly. And then you distill that beer or wine. So a beer, or let's say a wine is made from anything that's considered a fruit, and so that includes agave. That includes, of course, grape wine, which most like wine is, or fruit wines is considered a fruit. Considered a wine. Mead is actually considered somehow fruit, but you could distill that. And then anything that's considered a beer is usually made from grains. So that's, wheat,
Is it
barley.
grains or is it starch? Because there's potato vodka.
That would be the starches. Well, I'm lying a little bit because rice, sake is made from rice, and that's a grain and that's a starch. So that should technically be a beer. And there's a few other things that are considered beers that should be considered, should be a wine or whatever. But anyway, either way, however you classify it, a beer or a wine, anything that you ferment will be a beer or a wine, a low alcohol, and then you can distill it and make a high alcohol. So that's where you get into your 40% or more, So these are both distilled products. They're both distilled from grape wine. Brandy.
What does distilling mean?
Distilling.
There's a lot of people that don't know what that process is.
So distilling is heating it up to, so your mixture is now, say, your beer or your wine. So let's call it 10% alcohol, or 20% in most cases for production. But anyway, it's 10. All right, so you got 10% alcohol and then 90% water. So alcohol boils at a lower temperature. So you heat up that whole mixture, and the alcohol will vaporize and go up through a column, and then you will put it through a cold place over here, and that will turn it back into droplets, and alcohol will come off. At some point, you've reduced from your beer or your wine, you've boiled out all of the alcohol, and that is now almost alcohol free, and condensed flavors and kind of nasty actually. And then over here you have a very clear, it's always clear, spirit, high alcohol, that then ends up, it's somewhere probably over 80% alcohol at that point, and then you dilute it with water back down to the drinking level that you want.
Okay.
But anyway, so
what is
Brandy?
This is the grappa. What's it made out of?
All right, let me explain Brandy first, even though we'd want to drink grappa first.
Should I quote you as of last week and say this is boring?
This is boring. So anyway, you're taking so.
Those of you that watched last week.
With either of these, you're taking a finished wine, distilling it. In the case of Brandy, you're taking regular wine, the way we normally make wine, just like this, and distilling that, and then aging it in oak, which is why Brandy is almost always looks like this. It's got some caramel colors because of the oak. It starts out looking like the grappa starts out looking, just like all hard alcohols start out looking like this, because they come out of the still as a clear liquid of high alcohol. They just have a hint of flavor from the original base that they were going into. And in the case of whiskey, in the case of, that's whiskeys or Scotch and Irish whiskey and Canadian whiskey, all the
Are we
all
gonna
the bourbon,
get to taste these, or
all
are
of these?
you gonna
Yeah.
talk through our time?
Okay. So anyway, you age them in oak. That's where they get the color from and a bunch of their flavor from. Grappa is made from wine seconds, which is in the situation of, like, say, white wine. I take the grapes, I press them off, I distill the juice. I've got all these grapes sitting there, these grape skins. The skins, the pulp, the seeds, and it's still got some sugar in there. I take those, I add water, I add some acid, I add yeast again, and I get a fermentation going on these grape skins. But the flavor of them isn't going to be great like your wine, so then they distill that. So it's somewhere between a rum in a weird way, like a white rum and brandy. It's something like that, but it's released right away. It's almost never oaked at all. It's just kind of a clean, nasty flavored awesomeness.
Well, I said pulp, but it's the pips.
Pips.
The pips.
The pomace.
Yeah. So, that's
anyway,
really interesting. All right, so
you want to taste
which one do you want to?
You want to taste the clear one first. It's usually unaged, if you, Michelle's not a fan. She's not a fan of the hard liquors. They're just so intense for her. Understandable if it's lots of people feel that way. But just to taste it.
Should I smell it? Like with wine, I always stick my nose in it and smell it. Like,
I'd smell it a little bit, but not overly, because
like
that's gonna,
waft?
especially for you. Yeah. Keep your nose a little ways away from it, probably, and then just wet your lips. Just let the little bit of flavor come through. Don't try to.
It smells a little grapey.
Don't take a shot though. Don't if you wanna enjoy it, don't take a shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a shot is to get it down, but you're like that induces the hurl thing quick.
Okay.
But Grappa is awesome.
Oh. Okay, that's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, it's got hints of sweetness. It's not sweet at all.
What? It tastes a little like spearmint to me.
Yeah, it's it's light and refreshing, and
That's wild. What did you make the grappa out of?
I did not make the grappa.
I mean, we bought
because that would be illegal. That would be illegal. We bought the grappa, of course.
And what did they?
They made it out of Cabernet Sauvignon. That apparently they had made an awesome rosé out of, and had all these extra grape skins, and decided to re-ferment. So they told me.
Very
It's a
informative group that made this.
A local producer of sorts or whatever.
It actually it smells less rough. You know, some like I can't do those peaty whiskeys at all. This is better than that.
Okay, so we could get into that, but I won't, because it's
Different.
it's all different situation. But
So do you always drink it warm?
all right, so this is just to taste it, and no, I would say throw some ice cubes in there, and it will, just like wine, coldness dulls the flavors a little bit, and therefore you can let the flavors aromatize in your mouth as much as you want, or just down it quickly if that's what works for you.
Gotcha.
So
All right.
we've got a glass of ice over here that you can add to that. Let's go on to the...
That was surprisingly like pleasant. I did not anticipate it being that pleasant.
Let's go on to the brandy. So brandy can be made from...
Oh, it smells like oak.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very close. It's similar in stylistically. It's pretty similar to whiskeys of all kinds, without the extra smokiness traditionally. So you're looking at like cognac or Armagnac, any of the ones with the C at the end of a French name, VSOP. Those are all. Any of those are going to be a brandy, a grape brandy. They do have eau de vie in France, which are made from different fruits. So fruit brandies, they'll always be called fruit brandies though, and they'll tell you what it is. Is it apricot or cherry or apple or whatever? I think it's just absolutely lovely. I love all these things. Yeah.
It's got more fruit on the palate than a grappa. And the wood is really interesting because I think this actually would be a good thing for anybody curious about really being able to identify wood in a wine, because it really shows so clearly here.
Yeah. Brandies tend to come across naturally sweeter than whiskeys for whatever reason.
Because whiskey smells like ass.
That's
awful.
That's not necessarily true. You haven't experienced the whole world of whiskey. There's Scotch whiskey, which is, varying degrees of peatiness. So some of them are really peaty, and I understand why people don't like them. I love them, but I understand why they don't. Irish whiskeys are a little more milquetoast. Canadian whiskeys can be anywhere in the range. Bourbons are pretty intense. Bourbon whiskeys are pretty intense, which is an American whiskey, of course.
These are actually both very nice.
But brandy is a lovely, lovely, lovely thing to sip on, and I don't know. That's just the long and the short of it. I don't have any further information or whatever.
Let's put some ice in that. Chill that down. I'm really surprised at how well that actually came across. I was terrified to do this, but they actually taste pretty good, and I feel like chilling it down will be even better.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, it'll also dilute it a little bit, so it'll be
right?
not 40, 45. These are both kind of 45%.
Are there drinks that you can make out of these, or is it like,
I believe,
like don't mix your wine with soda kind of
right.
thing?
So a version of grappa, and I'm not sure of
Let's see what happens when I go back to wine.
Oh, don't do it. Are you smelling the alcohol flavors that came out of here? Diluted from their.
You could smell the oak way more than you ever could before after doing the brandy.
That's funny. So I think pisco. I'm not 100% positive how pisco is made, but pisco I believe is a form of grappa. Probably with more of the early distillate involved in there, which is kind of like gives it this funkiness, or maybe they go into the tails a little too much, and so they end up. But so it's pisco it tends to be a harder drink than grappa. Grappa is gaining worldwide notoriety. We're making it stateside now a lot, and it's super tasty. But originally, I think grappa was probably more like a pisco of South America is these days, but. There's pisco sours. There's pisco with amaretto, like a cherry frothy egg thing. I know, I'm hurried. They do like a whipped egg thing, and like cinnamon on top. It's some awesomeness. Not that you'd ever drink it more than the once or twice or 3 times that you're hanging out.
The whipped egg on top of something yucky does not sound fantastic. But all right, final comments,
anyway.
because we are running very late.
Of course. Oh no, I'm good.
All right,
that's it. We these are try them.
So
They're fun.
head out to your wine shops, local markets,
Local distilleries.
and local distilleries, and ask them for a grappa or a brandy or something close to that, and play around. There's so many different lives that a wine can take. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining us. We did go a little long, but I thought there was lots of good stuff in there. Everybody that has posted some questions, of course, we're going to look over those, and anything that we need to, we'll send on to Greg and get answers for you. So thank you, and we will see you next week, where we will taste Refosco from us and other local New Mexico wineries.
No way. That sounds like fun.
Why not?
Cheers, guys.